Welcome to this, our first inaugural varietal six-pack tasting. So obviously you're watching this because you've purchased one of these beautiful six-packs in store at Notes. So thank you for your custom, and hopefully we can add some value to that purchase by this tasting that we're offering today. So this is something that we are really passionate about, continuing to do, and the upcoming six-pack is going to be, the next one will be for spring, which will be in September. So keep an eye and a look for that on our social media channel, also obviously through the e-commerce store, noteswine.com. But today we are basically, we're looking at these wines. So I've got Brendan with us, and I've got Kyle with us, who both work in store. They've both got phenomenal palates. They both know these wines really well, and both really passionate about, wine and, just booze in general. So I think we're in for a good little tasting today. Thanks again, and I'll hand over to Brendan and Carl. Enjoy the tasting.
Thanks, Tony.
So what are we going to start with? Yeah, so I think we're going to start with the Notes Nouveau Syrah. So one of the three wines in the Notes range, soon to be expanded. So it's a multi-regional blend, which is really interesting. And of course, being a Syrah, it is very light and bright. The three regions we're looking at here, we're looking at McLaren Vale over in South Australia, of course, and also Heathcote here in Victoria and the Grampians. So it's a really interesting take on a blend. You've got a couple of warmer sort of climates, being McLaren Vale and Heathcote, and then you got that cool climate aspect from the Grampians. So Tom Shanahan, the winemaker with the Little Notes range.
It's a really cool wine, being that the three regions, Heathcote, they do a whole berry ferment. From Grampians, they're using whole bunch to try and get a little bit more textural, a little bit more structure in the wine. The way we've set it up today, today's tasting was sort of from like a lighter style Syrah through to your big bad bold Barossa. So you can sort of, as we go through the wines, you can see whether or not you want it to open and say, like this wine to me, when I smell this, I taste it, it's very fresh, it's very vibrant, has a little bit of that meaty character that you would get from a Syrah versus a Shiraz. I think this is a barbecue wine. This is a perfect wine that you would open when it's 30 degrees outside, you've got a couple of mates, you've got some chops, you got some snags, burgers, whatever you got on the barbecue. I think this is the Shiraz or the Syrah that you would open for that. And
agree. It's so vibrant and juicy. The tannins really well integrated on the back there. I completely agree there. Really good barbecue wine. No fuss, but I think at the price point really represents exceptional value, to be honest.
One that probably, a decant will help it. 30 minutes to an hour will help evolve the wine and show you what it can really do. But it's one that can literally just be take it home, pop the screw cap and drink it and go away. You don't need to do anything special. You don't need to decant for 4 hours plus and be checking it every 30 minutes. The whole reason that this wine was made, the way that I read the notes on the Notes wine was that it's a nouveau style, so a new world style. Drink now, you don't need to put it in the cellar. You buy 6, you drink 6, over the next 6 days or 6 weeks, depending on how much you love booze. As Tony said, we love booze. So what do you reckon from a winemaking?
Well, the winemaking perspective is quite interesting, as you mentioned at the start there. The the whole berry versus the whole bunch sort of fermentation technique. So really, what Brendan's referring to there is in the actual ferment, they'll completely destem the fruit. So it'll just be literally the berries in the ferment, and that kind of gives you a different style, a bit plusher. Whereas the addition of whole bunches can give you a bit more savoury edge and a structure to the wine. So two different fermentation techniques, but individual parcels of fruit, of course, treated separately and then blended at the end there. So it works really well.
It really does work well, and I think at the price point, I think it's one that can really. You could give it as a gift, or you could just use it as an everyday quaffer. Something that us wine connoisseurs, we're always looking for. Not that I'm a connoisseur, please, but we're always looking for something that's easy to drink and that doesn't blow the budget, because I don't know about you, but my wife doesn't know about all my wine purchases, so we try and keep some of them, they're a little bit hidden under the table. So
Alrighty, well, I think we'll roll over to the next one in the pack there. So what do we got here? We got the Mount Ida, the Seppelt Mt Ida Heathcote Shiraz. So that's the Seppelt Mt Ida, 2019 vintage.
So visiting Heathcote again.
Correct. So this wine, I mean, to be honest, if you were served this in a blind tasting, you'd almost unrecognisably call Heathcote. It just Heathcote for me really sings the region when you're smelling it and tasting it. Planted in '75, the Mount Ida vineyard. 14 months in barrel. French oak barriques, 40% new oak in this wine. So being Heathcote, it's definitely. You've got that nice full sort of chocolatey sort of palate almost.
It's definitely much fuller and much. You get that new oak and that big higher presence of the new oak. And 40% is quite a lot of new oak, but Heathcote has a hot climate, warm climate.
Pretty warm climate, and the rainfalls are quite. Compared to say the Yarra, it's probably looking at half or a third of the rainfall that the Yarra would see.
So a much earlier pick then, like if you were picking?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, more red soils over there, of course, compared to, well, the Yarra's got a bit of red soil in the upper as well, but look, they do have to rely on irrigation a little bit up in Heathcote. With that sort of dry.
Definitely would benefit, I think, from if you're going to be serving this is 2019, yep?
Correct, the 19.
Yeah, it would definitely benefit from, I think, a minimum of an hour. I think it really needs to, needs to plush out a little bit. I think that oak and the tannin are there, but they need to sort of just help each other out a little bit. If you open it and pour it straight from the bottle, would be a little bit, maybe a touch over oaky and the tannin a bit grippy.
I think it's, on the young side, but you can definitely see it's going to come together.
What do you think the drinking window would be? Like, when do you think that would hit its straps?
It's good now, but I mean, ultimately, I would like to come back and visit in probably a couple of years, 2-3 years, and peak drinking probably the next 5 to 10. It's definitely got the hallmarks of being a pretty serious.
I think it would last Shiraz. 10 plus, up to 15, 20.
It would definitely go the journey for sure. It's got that depth to carry it through for sure.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. I think food-wise. Definitely probably a heavier style of meal.
Maybe braised beef or something.
Braised beef, ossobuco, something along those lines.
Something pretty hearty.
Something that's pretty hearty that would, the oak would benefit really any red meat dish, I think, and anything really heavy. Even up to a spaghetti bolognese, I think would be really.
Yeah,
I think it would really complement any dish because you could put it in the dish. And then you could drink it as well. If you wanted to waste it in a dish and cook out the alcohol, I don't know, but I wouldn't be wasting it. Yeah, and I think that, value for money wise, I think, you're sort of going, you're starting off at your entry level price point and then you're jumping up to the mid 40s.
Yeah, I think it's 60 on the dot, but it still represents pretty good value, I think, and being one that we think will definitely go the journey.
Yeah, you're also going, you're starting to, as you come up in the value, you're starting to jump into selected parcels, single vineyard ranges. You're starting to, move away from, it could be fruit source just from the estate.
Multi-regional
blend. You're starting to, the more input that the winemaker and that the vineyard might have, you start to elevate the price point. So, a beautiful wine though.
Pretty smart wine, that's for sure.
So next.
What do we got next?
Next we've got Coldstream Hills. So the Coldstream Hills Reserve Shiraz. Here from the Yarra Valley
18
itself, 2018. The vineyard itself, Coldstream Hills, was started by the legendary James Halliday and his wife, Susan, in 1985. Good birth year, that. Great year, 1985. This has been a single vineyard wine grown in the Yarra Valley from a vineyard. The fruit isn't from Coldstream Hills. It's sourced from a vineyard just up the road, and it's been from 2014. Obviously, there's a little bit of sediment in there, but there's sort of something in there. In the glass just to show that Yarra Valley, that typical Yarra Valley, that cool climate.
It's pretty plush, isn't it?
Yeah, but a lot of dusty, a lot of earthy.
Correct.
I really get, you're sort of in terms of a price point too, you're going back down a little bit from the 60 back down to 45.
45, I think we've got it, yeah.
45, so you're real value again. I definitely get more meaty, earthy,
correct.
Cured meats.
Cured meats for sure.
Definitely I almost would think this is more of a Syrah style than a Shiraz style.
Yeah, it's kind of in that wavelength. And just for reference, while we're touching on Syrah and Shiraz, you know, it's a pretty loose sort of definition. Shiraz and Syrah, you know, folks, is the same grape variety, but Syrahs tend to be, you know, cooler climate and a bit lighter, perfumed and elegant, whereas Shiraz tend to be that bigger, bolder expression. But like, to be honest, you can kind of go down the road to a winery and they'll have a Syrah and the neighbour will have a Shiraz, and you know, you're going 5 minutes by car, so there's no real...
Could you get Syrah and Shiraz from the same vineyard? Like, could you know, like say I owned a vineyard and I had 10 rows of grapes, could you buy 5 and I buy 5 and you make a Shiraz and I would make a Syrah? Would we be able to, something we could achieve?
Absolutely, I think you could, and that's coming down really to the winemaker and the technique and the style that they're going for there, you know, in terms of your fermentation techniques and even your yeast strains that you're selecting to kind of achieve that as a style.
And this one sees a little bit of new oak, about 25, 26%,
Yeah.
call it mid-20s% of the new
Seems
oak.
like that. Yeah.
Don't think it needs any more new oak. I think if it's all the 40% like the Heath
probably
did,
mask it, wouldn't it?
Correct, it would
Yeah.
cover over the fruit. This is really, it's really plush, really, it's almost delicate. And I think that, yeah, I think Andrew's done, the winemaker Andrew Fleming from Coldstream Hills, I think he's done a fantastic job at, you know, highlighting the fruit and the region rather than like a winemaking style per se. Like,
Yeah, and I think, you know, just comparing, going that to the Heathcote, you know, or the Heathcote to that, the Heathcote for me is definitely something that needs that hardier sort of dish, whereas this is something
definitely
could
be a lighter
yeah,
dish,
like I think
yeah.
you mentioned Spag Bold before, like I'd definitely be going
white meats too, I think.
Yeah.
This would definitely work. I don't think it would overpower some fish dishes. I think any pasta. I mean, you know, red wine and pasta seem to be a hit. And I think if you know, I don't think you can go past that.
No, agreed. Rightio, where are we up to next? So we're on to the next wine in the pack, the grey label,
The big boys,
Wolf Blass Shiraz. So yeah, we're moving into some sort of bigger, bolder styles. So the grey,
Vale, right?
yeah, McLaren Vale, 100% McLaren Vale fruit. You know,
It's already starting to smell a lot heavier, a lot denser,
yeah,
more complex.
it's brooding and complex, isn't it? Interesting thing about it's sourced from a few different vineyards, so you're ranging in elevation from anywhere as low as 50 metres above sea level right up to around that sort of 200, 220 metre mark, which is adding different dimensions to the wine. So it is sourced from a couple of different vineyards. You know, McLaren Vale, you know, I think a lot of different soil types in the basin there. You know, you got some yellow clays, some red soils, you know, some granite and things like that as well. So you're getting into different soil profiles. Really interesting with this wine.
Yeah,
you know, you're only looking at, I think it's about 6% American oak and 10% French new. So there's about 16% new oak in the wine, and then the rest is a combination of old French oak barrels and also 20% stainless steel tank. So that's quite interesting from a winemaking perspective. They've kind of gone with that 20% stainless steel tank to just maintain that plushness of the fruit and that fruit forward ripeness.
I think the American oak is quite handy in this instance. I think this is the first wine that's really like dried my mouth out, that really dry, grippy, chalky, like it's very fleshy, but also then as soon as you get to the back palate, it starts to really dry out, and
it's got a bigger mouthfeel, doesn't it?
This needs a steak, like this needs a fatty piece, like a porterhouse or an Angus Scotch fillet, something along those lines, because it really is, it's like the acid is very, very, it's there and present, but I think the fruit from McLaren Vale to me is always a little bit more like dusty and chalky. The tannins are like...
I think chalky is a great word to use.
They're drying, but they don't... You know, I'm not needing to go and drink water every time I have a sip, but it's definitely, I feel like you need to keep drinking it because you want to keep wetting your mouth, but it does the opposite effect.
Told you we love booze.
Definitely love booze, but it's a very good, and I think for, where are we at price now again? 45 again, so you're the same price as where you are with the Coldstream Hills.
Yeah, very honest
site,
wine.
you're saying to elevating the Wolf Blass range, you know, you got your ones that you see at all the big independent chains, and you start to get up into the higher levels. And I think what it shows is that, you know, even the big brands, the big labels can produce wines that, you wouldn't necessarily want to go for if you've been turned off, as a younger wine drinker. Wolf Blass, I'm drinking Wolf Blass. It was 12 bucks at, whatever supermarket I've been at. Knowing though what they can achieve, going all the way up to the platinum label, to the Medlands, it's an incredible wine that many people, if you serve blind, would call, something that's well above where it's batting. And I think this wine would benefit from a long time in the cellar, or a very long decant.
Correct. Yeah, it's definitely built to go the journey. I dare say that's.
When did you open this?
Around 1 o'clock. So it's had
Was it had 3.5 hours, something like that, like already?
Hours,
and I think it's just starting to, that oak starting to just like fade off a little bit. The fruit's starting to come forward, but it's still very it's very drying. I'm still dry like now.
Yeah,
and I haven't had a drink for I don't know how long, a minute or two.
Yeah, and an interesting point that you made about brands and perception with brands and things like that. I completely understand that. I've been there as well, and for me the most interesting thing, I went to a Shiraz night, just recently, and did a little tasting there, and I was amazed to see these brands that a lot of people would recognise, and how they stand up, and they're pioneers for a reason in the market, because they've been making honest wine,
what people
very good wine
what
for a
people
long
forget,
time.
I reckon, is that these winemakers that are making their single site vineyards, or their small batch, your little independent guys, or your smaller people, who I love to support as well, is that they started their journey at one of the big names, whether it be a Wolf Blass, whether it be a Penfold, whether it be at Borderley in the Yarra Valley. It tends to be every winemaker that is out there doing their own thing and their own label started at one of the big boys, and without one of the big labels or the big
It wouldn't be possible.
It wouldn't be possible, because how would you get a start to then know what to do to go out, to have the ability to go out on your own? And and that's evident in.
That's the good thing about the wine industry,
Coldstream.
isn't it?
They all have
Such a supportive network.
Correct.
Once you're kind of in, you just it's very easy to just go through a lot of different avenues.
It's immersive. 3 years ago I was literally just a carpenter, and now I'm a carpenter who lives and breathes for a product that grows on trees that I can buy at Coles for the grapes of my kids, or then I can go and buy this fermented grape juice that can completely transform the way that you think about a meal, or about just talking with someone. It changes the whole everything.
Yeah. Alrighty. I think
we've done a lot of McLaren Vale now. I think we've covered McLaren Vale and Heathcote really well, I think.
Yeah. So next up in the pack, we're getting on to. We're staying with the big boys, and we're going on to Barossa Valley. We're taking a train ride over to the Barossa, so if there's a train there.
You definitely don't drive if you're going from McLaren to Barossa. Definitely don't drive.
Yeah, definitely recommend. Anyway.
We're all about drinking responsibly here.
That's it. Each to their own. The Barossa. Marmbrook. So off to Saltram Marmbrook. So Marmbrook. Well, Saltram as a winery dates back to William Salter, the founder, with his son back in, the mid to late, sort of 1850 mark. Marmbrook actually features the house that William actually built. I think it's a six bedroom house. I think a couple of bathrooms. Yeah, it's a feature. It's still standing today, and definitely a feature in the Barossa to go see.
The house here is still standing too. It's in Hubert's.
That it is for now.
Well. Maybe it's the thing about keeping the original house, eh?
Yeah, true. Must mean something.
History still means something, right?
It does. To the wine.
Big.
Yeah, it is.
Like a darker colour already than the others. Already, like if you were to put that compared to, say the the notes. I don't know if you probably can't see that on. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's probably a good 50% darker. Like I can see through the notes Syrah, but through this, no, definitely not. On the outer rim, yes, but not through the inside. I think it really is a testament to what the Barossa shows. Everybody thinks Barossa is like big, bold, brash, fruit forward, high acid, high tannin wines that go the distance, and they do, because a lot of stuff. Saltram's high-end stuff, they're number one. They need, they need 10 years before you can even think about drinking them. And I think this needs a big decant too, maybe a double decant. This needs, fatty fruit as well, I think, to cut through.
Just looking at it now, like I think, as you said, we've done 3 hours. I probably could have done a double decant and could have done more.
I think these two
could have sat in the
These two could have just, an hour, half an hour to an hour maximum, even out of the bottle. Really.
So that's the Syrah and the Heathcote Shiraz.
The Coldstream Hill's probably the same. Then you're starting to get these boys, like they really need, and they'll benefit from the time. Now I know a lot of you probably won't have the time to come home at 1 o'clock and decant your wine, so then drink at 7 o'clock. But you know, a quick tip you could probably do is a double decant. You could pour it out into. You can use anything. You can use a clay spittoon. You can use a jug from Kmart. You can use anything. Yeah. Even pouring it from glass to glass makes a difference. All it does is just increases the oxygenation and allows the wine to just show you what the winemaker wanted you to see, rather than what has been bottled and trapped for 17, so 5 years now. This is bottled probably in late 2018, probably saw 15, 16 months.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'm trying.
Don't go get the notes. I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to do that.
Yeah, I know. Can't go back to the notes. Look, definitely a bit of oak in there. It's a wine that needs it. Can take it for sure.
It's my kind of wine.
Yeah.
How much is this, Carl?
I think off the drum it's 45 again. So you've just tried 3 wines at that $45 price point.
You've got 3 completely different.
And you got 3
polar opposites. And go back to the Yarra now. And
that's the interesting thing. Like you've gone, you go on Yarra and McLaren to Barossa, and
like the Yarra much more acid driven, and my mouth's watering, a bit more fruit profile. Like then heading back to McLaren Vale, like you can't not smell that new American oak, like that like coconut, vanilla. Like
it's got that coconut, doesn't it, behind it? And it's interesting. Oak. Like it's not a massive amount of American oak in there, but it's enough that you can pick that up.
You reckon we use much American oak in Australia or not?
I mean, I think Penfolds definitely go with the American oak. Wines that are suited to that.
It's a big wine. It's a big wine that needs a lot of time. You could put this down for 15 years. And
great cellaring potential. I
don't think it would have any problems opening up and standing up to wines 2, 3, 4 times the price.
Correct.
Which I think leads us into the
to
the last big boy, to the Wolf Blass, another Wolf Blass. Go for it, mate. You got it.
The St. John, Wolf Blass St. John.
So this is Barossa again, 2018, but you're heading way up north to actually the furthest point in the Barossa, on the Ebenezer end of the Barossa. So a higher elevation again, you're looking at almost 300 metres above sea level. It's actually, for those of you that know the Barossa and the way that it's sort of shaped, where most of the towns and the winemakers and all the hustle and bustle is all through the centre, and then sort of around the outskirts, and as you get up higher is where most of the vineyards, and they're all owned. The vineyards aren't necessarily owned by the winemaker. There's a lot of contract growing and people buying fruit from one particular vineyard who may have 1,000 rows, and they're owning individual sections. And it's actually the warmest part of the Barossa. Barossa is already moderately to hot.
Yeah.
It's almost I think they classify it as a continental climate. It's the warmest part of the Barossa, but it also has the coolest nights. And it will also have the highest humidity throughout the growing season. So the picking will generally, I think from a winemaker thing, that would make it early, or would it make it late?
In terms of picking
the grapes, because of the way that it's hot during the day, but
like
really cool at
diurnal,
night.
I guess they call it. It's you'd want to pick it early in the morning, that's for sure.
Yeah,
to maintain the brightness of it.
It's darker again. Like you're getting, you're starting to get to almost, like a purpley tinge to it. The outer rim is even a dark red. Doesn't have any sort of like lightness to it. And we're 2018, so we're 4 years already.
It's so bold. The nose is pretty complex, and I had a cheeky sip of it before off camera earlier in the day, and it's very complex. I dare say out of all of them, it's probably the most complex wine. There's a lot going on
in price as well. You're going from like 45 for the grey label to 90 for the sapphire. But I think a lot of people, like I know, like for me, like my wife will always ask when we open a bottle of wine, like how much does that cost? And it's like, first of all, your mind goes like, do I tell the truth, or do I just tell her like, what I think it should cost? Because you don't want to tell her, all the time. But correct, I think that people say, how can you actually tell the difference? Like, can you tell the difference between the Wolf Blass and the grey label and the sapphire label?
Yeah, that's a good point that you're making, and like, to be honest, served blind, I wouldn't know. know. Maybe the Heathcote wine, I'd probably, for me, as I said earlier, I think I could sort of pick Heathcote as a region, but
This is undeniably Barossa. Like it's
Yeah.
fruit. It's not jammy like Barossa can get. I think it carries its weight. But I mean, for me personally, like if I was to jump between this and even the Mumbai Barossa, like I can definitely tell and taste the winemaker's intent, the winemaker's passion, and probably the use of maybe some better oak, maybe a different toasting level. Like it does.
Correct, yeah.
The finish is long. Like the acid's still there. Like it's
Correct.
still going, and it's been 60 to 90 seconds since I've had the last sip.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones may sort of fade out a little bit quicker, which I think is a testament to a higher end and higher level wine.
Agreed. And like for these wines, they're generally speaking single vineyard wines. That
Yeah,
are
so this is sourced from a couple's vineyard that grow wines from a very like a north facing, right up on top. So you're getting early pick, that real like bold brash fruit. I think like this would need you could open this wine in the morning before work, and you drink this 12 hours later, and I think what it would do is it would evolve. You could drink it over 3-4 days if you were a solo drinker. You wouldn't need to drink it all in one hit, and I think that puts a lot of people off. I reckon.
Yeah.
Like if I open a bottle, I've got to drink it. Like you could drink this over 4 days. Not that wine lasts 4 days in my house, but you could potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I agree. It definitely hold up. And just going back to your points about picking the actual fruit, it'd be quite easy to just kind of let it sit on the vine, but then you kind of go into that jammy sort of characters that you get. So I think smart that they've picked it where it's at. I think don't quote me, but it's definitely at that 14.5. I'm going to guess 14.5 off the top of my head. Pretty sure it's 14.5.
I think it's a big difference too, like where you're picking like the Yarra, the Coldstream Hills Yarra, number 3, I think. Yeah. Like would have been picked later, being the cooler climate, letting the fruit sort of gain some complexity, gain some sugar.
Yeah.
Picked too early and probably it's a little bit too tart.
That is definitely like vintage specific as well. Here in the Yarra 18 was actually, for Yarra was a sort of a warmer year. So fruit, ripened quite quickly.
So which one would you pick, Carl? If you had to pick one, you only were allowed to drink one, not for the rest of your life, obviously, but just you had to drink one tonight. You put on, we'll go spaghetti bolognese because we've gone back to there a few times.
Yeah,
they would all work with spaghetti bolognese.
They would.
The denser they get, the more time they would need to open. Which one would you pick?
You know what? I'm actually thinking that Saltram Marmbrook for me. I think it's a really, really honest wine at that price point. It just gives you everything you could ever want in Shiraz, and it's got the body and depth to go the journey, but it's also drinking really well now. Some of these probably need that time to find their sweet spot, perhaps like the Mount Ida, But yeah, for me, I'm going the Saltram Marmbrook 17.
Nice, it's a very nice one actually.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm a Yarra file.
Yeah.
I'm all about the Yarra
The
file.
Yarra.
I think the Coldstream Hills, the Reserve Shiraz, I think is the best of both worlds. I mean, I love the Wolf Blass, the Sapphire. I think it's brilliant, but I would be putting this down and drinking this in 5 or 8 years. So I think for a drink now wine, I think the Coldstream Hills allows you to enjoy Shiraz in all its glory with the fruit, the tannin, and the acid, but it's also delicate and light enough that you can have it without food.
Pretty versatile.
Yeah, it's very
Big
versatile.
time,
It's very well made.
18,
like a little bit more challenging of a vintage, but
Yeah, he's a smart winemaker.
he sure is. He's a nice guy, isn't he?
Yeah. Alrighty, well, I think that's we've gone through the pack there, and hopefully brought a bit of light to some of these wines, and the differences in the winemaking. And
I think we put this together just on a Saturday afternoon. We just sort of put
We
a pack
did, we
together,
just
and we just thought, oh, there's an empty box here. Let's put 6 wines in there.
That's it, and I think it's worked out quite well.
I think it works well. They're all daily drinkers, all cellarable, all the way from barbecue through to your really big,
Correct.
big bold. So thanks for following us, and thanks for purchasing the pack, and we look forward to showing you guys the next one.
Thanks, guys.